right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg on this Wednesday, August 9th. Thanks so much for tuning in. Do me a favor if you haven't yet, click like and click subscribe on this video. Maybe you want to wait to click like until you're sure you like it, but you can click subscribe anytime. There's the bottom right little blue and white square. Those are kind of my colors. I just think they look kind of nice together on the GIMP here. So Democrats, Republicans, they are not on the side of poor, struggling working people. You can see it from the headline, despite the race baiting that Donald Trump engaged in. And I remember getting into a conversation once, and maybe it was an argument, a dispute. I can't remember. There was a guy who used to call in all the time. He kind of was a famous caller from, I believe, Nashville, Tennessee. He wrote an article about him on NPR. I can't remember the guy's name, but I hope he calls me. I hope he comes back, 240-363-7190. And we were talking about Trump, and he was going on and on about how racist Trump was. And I said, I want, evidence. And he said, well, he denied Obama was born in the United States. And I thought that was a pretty strong example. And I do think, without question, that at many occasions Trump used, and I don't like tropes and all that stuff, but I think there were dog whistles to the working class, white voters. I think he was somewhat dismissive of the concerns that African Americans have because their position in America is less secure. Not that there aren't plenty of insecure white people. I think Democrats completely ignore or frequently ignore that fact. But, certainly Trump had no problem, just as Ronald Reagan, they have no problem appealing to racist voters and using racism as a tool to win elections. That said, Bill Clinton did, in fact, preside over an execution of a mentally retarded black man shortly, I believe it was before the election in 1992. And that was widely seen, I think probably correctly so, as a pandering to white voters who want to see a black man executed, regardless of his very, very low mental state. So this is where we are. We're in a country where identity politics, tribalism, racism are used to divide voters and to win elections by both parties. And the traditional ally of working class voters, working class Americans, of the working class period, the traditional ally politically, at least since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Democratic Party has been completely absent, just simply has failed to step forward to fight for workers. And that's the reason that despite the failings or worse of the Republican Party, what you see there is a movement away from the Democrats, at least by black men, and the distinct possibility that Joe Biden will lose in 2024 because the interests of African American voters have not been prioritized, in fact, have been ignored, deprioritized, whatever term you want, by the party. So this article from Reuters, by the way, I got from, I didn't get it from, but I saw Jimmy Dore discussing it. And of course, that he's kind of a guy that I've used to really admire. And now I've take a lot of what he has to say with several grains of salt because of his questioning, his skepticism of the climate catastrophe. And he'll say, I'm not questioning it, but then he calls into doubt whether record high readings in Europe really happened. So, if you don't want to call that skepticism, call whatever you want. But this article he did discuss, and I decided to look at it and follow up because I think it's pretty darn important. I have a slightly different take than Dore, as is usually the case. So what's going on here? Why are black voters, especially men, why are they reconsidering the traditional allegiance since the civil rights movement that so many black voters, African Americans, have had the allegiance to the Democrats? What is that about? And I thought there was a really from my understanding, what's going on, pretty spot on, and certainly comports with what another one of my listeners in the past told me that he was considering seriously in 2016 voting for Trump because he had a better grasp of the economic problems in the heartland, in the Midwest. He had a better grasp, he had a better job program, and I think he was referring specifically to tariffs, which Clinton was, a free trader responsible for pushing policies and that were implemented that gutted America's working middle class. Used to be a middle class. You worked at GE. I'm not saying it was so great. I'm not saying I would have wanted to work on the line necessarily at GM, but it offered true economic security, cradle to grave. And those jobs have been lost largely. There's still a few of them, but far fewer. Many other manufacturing jobs gone for good, especially from the Midwest. Been an absolute disaster. These are policies that the Democratic Party, just as much as the Republican Party, pushed, at least since the early 90s when Clinton took office. His wife pushed, voted for when she was senator from New York State, campaigned on, as did Biden. So this is the Democratic Party. And as a result, working class voters of color are more and more reconsidering their allegiance to that corporatist duopoly party. So here's what Bata McConnell had to say from Georgia, and he's 28, so he's one of those millennials. I think that's a millennial, right? I don't know what the cutoff is, but these are the voters that overwhelmingly have voted Democratic in recent elections, and he is now reconsidering his support for Biden in 2024. And he's, according to Reuters, this is a Reuters piece, McConnell is disappointed by the Democratic lurch to the left, and I think this is where wording, right, where lexicography is so important. Terms. I would argue the Democratic Party is anything but a leftist party. I would argue that there are no real leftists, no real progressives in the Democratic Party at this point, at least in the leadership, and especially in Washington, D.C. They enunciate wokeist policies, identity politics. They do ostensibly side with traditionally marginalized groups, people who have been on the periphery of society, if accepted even there, based on their identity, not on class. That to me is not leftist at all. Leftist is very, very easily defined as championing policies that will lead to more economic security for poor, struggling, and working people. They are not leftists. But what both the right wing and many centrist, moderate Dems, people like James Carville, have done, people like, who's the former Senator Claire McCaskill, what they do is they attack those whom they call leftists in the Democratic Party. And the idea has become implanted in many voters' mind that the real problem with the Democratic Party is that they're too far to the left because they talk about gay rights, they talk about trans rights, they talk about, not for an African American voter, but for white working class voters, they talk about reparations. They don't do a lot for any of those groups, but they talk about them. And this is where I think the media really is so guilty. This is something that also Arlen discussed yesterday, is that we're up against it because the media is so determined to demonize any progressive economic policies. And so they conflate leftism with unpopular identitarian policies rather than saying, hey, leftists are democratic socialists who want everyone to have health care. Well, you say that, people are going to be like, oh, I like those leftists. That's what I like, Democrats are progressives are democratic socialists who think that the wealthy should be paying, anyone who makes over $1 million should be paying 80-90% in taxes on the income above that 1 million. I think most Americans would say $1 million. I'll be lucky if I earn all that much in my lifetime, right? I'll be lucky if maybe I'll make that much in 20 years at my $50,000 a year salary. So of course, somebody who's making a million, who's making 2 million can do just fine if the second million, they only get to put 200 grand in their pockets, which is again 4 times what I'm making, and that's their second million. So I think if you saw the media honestly identify leftist policies, democratic socialism with economic justice, lefty policies would be very, very popular. Leftists believe in truly fair trade, where we don't allow corporations to freely transfer capital, jobs overseas, where they're paying workers a pittance, where they're paying 1/20th, where workers are getting $1 an hour for work that's done here for people who are making 20 and just barely getting by on that 20. So if you said, hey, leftism, lefty politics, democratic socialism means that if you want to bring cheap products into this country that are manufactured overseas by exploited labor, then you're going to have to pay a huge tariff on every item that you sell. Well, people would say, that's a great idea, let's do it. So what the media does is it conflates leftism with identity politics, which people often don't like, and they resent the implication that some other group, not them, but some other group is a victim. Most people resent being told that people who live next door to them, who have a similar income to them, who face similar problems that they face, are somehow more entitled to government support, that they have suffered more. People don't really like to think that. I think what most Americans want is that everyone get a fair shake, everyone get a reasonable outcome, not just reasonable opportunity, but a reasonable outcome. And if the Democrats promoted those kind of policies, which would be truly lefty policies, they'd be really popular, but they don't. And that's why they're losing voters like Bata McConnell. Call me, 240-363-7190. Now, the Reuters article goes on to identify several areas where they opine, and I think this is based on what McConnell said. I think it's based on some research. It's legitimate. And again, the Democratic Party's focus is identity politics. It's based on you're a member of you're a member of a group based on identifiable characteristics, not based on your economic status, not based on your job, not based on your level of education, not based on how nice a home you live in. None of that. It's the color of your skin. It's your sexual identity. It's your gender. It's your sex. Those are the issues those are the areas where they focus. And this isn't what most working class workers, what most people want. They want student loan debt relief. They want Medicare for all. They want economic empowerment, meaning that you can leave an unpleasant, unfair job and not risk homelessness. There are some issues that are more important to some communities than others, like police and criminal justice reform. But the Democratic Party can't focus on those issues without alienating many white working class voters. That's not to say that police and criminal justice reform aren't important. And there are ways to go about it which are much less alienating. For example, legalizing marijuana, legalizing all drugs, and guaranteeing that there's real, true competition. You don't have CVS and a few big players dominating the market and profiting off of people's despair, which causes them to seek out drugs in the first place. So again, Democrats do pretty much everything in a way that's designed to alienate voters, some voters, to pit voters who are working class against each other, just as Republicans do, because their financiers, their donors want them to. And this is costing them votes. This is why they're going to lose the election, very possibly. What's the solution? The solution has to be we look for a third party. We look outside the duopoly. Otherwise, we'll continue to be shortchanging, betraying hundreds of millions of Americans. Now, the Reuters piece says many of those efforts have been blocked by Republicans. I don't really think there was a real sincere effort, for any of it. I mean, we're looking at endless war, which is terrible for our economy. That is reckless spending. It's unpopular now, the support for war in Ukraine. Democrats do the wrong thing, just as Republicans do. This article gets some things wrong. Now, according to Reuters, McConnell, the Georgia voter, doesn't like Democrats' focus on LGBTQ and abortion rights and leaves them feeling alienated. Well, it's true. If you talk about another group, another identifiable group, like, and I struggle with that, LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, and questioning people. If you focus on that group and you're talking to an African-American straight man, he's probably going to be pretty pissed off. He's going to be like, what are you talking about their problems? What about my problems? I can't get a good job. I have to work week to week. It's hard for me to find an apartment where anyone will rent to me. Why are you... Like, I know there's gay billionaires. You're trans people, really? So that Olympic guy who's now a woman, Jenner, his daughters are like, one of them's a billionaire. Her daughters, right? Caitlyn Jenner's daughters, one of them's a billionaire. I'm supposed to be worried about them? That's why these policies, these types of identity issues are so alienating to so many Americans, because they're struggling and all they're hearing is somebody else has it even worse than I do. They're the ones who, maybe it's my fault, because I told the joke, so it's my fault that you're saying it's my fault that gay people get teased. You're saying that. That's what you're telling me. And obviously no one wants to hear that. So, well, even if it's true, that's not how you win elections. You win elections by addressing the legitimate concerns of the majority of American people. And what are those legitimate concerns? A good job, secure housing, health care, retirement, their environment. Those are the universal issues that neither party will address. Neither duopoly party will address. That's why you have to vote for Dr. Cornel West. Now, I want to respond. The abortion rights issue is an issue that Democrats should use. And I'm not saying they shouldn't use identity issues too, but those issues need to be subsumed within universal issues like healthcare. Yes, of course, we need to provide mental health care to those who are being victimized because of their sexual identification, because of their gender. Of course, everyone gets health care. Everyone gets access. There's not going to be people aren't going to be denied because they can't afford, they can't act, they can't find it. We're going to have universal health coverage. And you use the issues that are so appealing to so many Americans, and you can conform those to address the identity concerns. African Americans, yes, you don't have access to the health care you deserve, so therefore you're going to get it. Period. Housing is a challenge. You've been discriminated against in the past. We're going to make sure, and here's what we're going to do to guarantee housing. That's what Democrats can do, and then they will win elections. And they will keep winning, just as they did from the 30s through the late 1960s. Abortion is an issue which has a lot of support. I think Democrats should champion abortion rights. They don't, though, right? I mean, they don't. There were a lot of things that more than half of America is women. I think most Americans believe, now maybe you don't say that maybe we have to have some compromises, third trimester abortions, which are incredibly rare. And we can make even rarer as long as we have every girl and woman who needs care, needs treatment because she's pregnant or for any other reason, can go to the doctor and get the treatment they need free at the point of delivery. They're not going to be billed or dunned for it. That would reduce even more, and there are very few, again, third trimester abortions every now and then because of the health of the mother. Maybe a woman girl didn't even know she was pregnant for whatever reason. There are legitimate reasons, I think, for third trimester, but if you have a viable baby, then I think we can talk about whether that's an appropriate situation where you have a healthy baby and you have a healthy mom. Is that where we have abortions? Maybe not. Maybe that's a time when you can, if a woman is really adamant she doesn't want to carry the baby to term, you have a C-section and then the baby's adopted. There are alternatives, assuming that's totally healthy. But in general, most Americans believe, certainly in the first few months, that a woman should have the right to choose whether she's going to keep the child and deliver the child, even if that's something that I think most Americans believe in. And it's also right, and it is popular. And I think so. There's an issue where there's going to be some divisiveness, some disagreement. But we just had a referendum in Ohio. Now remember, the Democrats use abortion a lot to try to get votes. Talk about how the Republican Party is trying to take away their woman's right to choose. And it's true. The Republican Party is trying to do that. But it's hardly the case that the Democrats themselves are champions of a woman's right to choose, of reproductive rights, of reproductive health. There were a lot of ways that Biden could have responded to the Dobbs decision that took away Roe v. Wade. Could have said, hey, anytime you're on a federal facility like a army base, we're going to make abortions available. And there's nothing to say that Texas could have done. They don't have authority in those places. But the Democrats didn't do that. The Democrats could have, certainly could have put forward legislation guaranteeing the right to choose, but they didn't do that. And those policies probably would have been popular. It would have certainly shown the Democrats as fighters, even for issues where maybe the nation is relatively evenly split. It might have caused, can you imagine, real admiration for them for taking a real stand. They didn't do it. Now, I get it. That is a very divisive issue. I think that they'd be better served ultimately fighting for Medicare for all, which would include the right to choose. but they don't fight for anything. So here is evidence that Americans, even red state Americans, want abortion rights, and Democrats would be well served, despite the fact that they might alienate some voters like Bata McConnell in Georgia, if they supported choice. And then if you want to get a voter like McConnell on your side, bring jobs back. Fight for manufacture in this country. Fight for unions to protect wages. Those are all policies that would win. Democrats don't pursue them. Vote for a third-party candidate. Oh, we're not hearing her. Hold on. Let me see what that's about. Here we go. We'll go back and do this one more time. Ooh, jumping around. Here we go, folks.
Good morning, Craig. A clear and resounding message from Ohio voters. This issue was driven by the energy and emotion around abortion rights, while the specific issue on the ballot dealt with making it harder to change the state's constitution, and that could ultimately affect abortion restrictions. This is considered a major win for abortion rights supporters ahead of a key vote coming on the November ballot. That would guarantee the right to an abortion with a new constitutional amendment in Ohio. Yesterday's losing proposal would have required that next vote to pass with a 60% supermajority. That failed. So now the November vote.
All right. So now they're going to have a vote in November to enshrine the right to choose in Ohio's state constitution. And it only needs to win by 50% plus one. So that's a great result. I mean, this stopped a Republican plan to make it much harder for the right to choose to be protected. And that's great. And I note that one of the reasons Republicans do this stuff is because they don't want to see progressives win. They know it's not just that they care. I mean, I think a lot of Republicans, elites, they don't give a crap about abortion rights one way or the other. They are pandering to the religious fundamentalists. Probably some do. There are some devout religious folks who really care. I know Catholic Jack believes very, very strongly, and he's very sincere in that belief. I know many people are. But I don't believe Donald Trump obviously doesn't give a crap. But they don't want to see progressives win anything. And the reason, because they're a lot smarter than Democrats. They get that winning is contagious and winning is popular. And if you win, you're going to get people to follow you. So they don't want to see wins by progressives, by Democrats, by socialists. And I think a lot of moderate Dems don't either. Look, they were happy to lose with Hillary. Happier to lose with Hillary than to win with Bernie. Again, we can change that. We can unite together in support of a true progressive. We have no choice. We have to do it. We have to do it for our planet. We have to do it for our families. We have to do it for ourselves. 240-363-7190. Love to talk to you. By the way, I did put in the link to Clip Grab. That's an app that allows you to download from YouTube videos, and you can download in just an audio format. Take the clip, the file, put it on your phone if you want, and then you can listen to that or watch it whenever you want, wherever you want. You don't even need internet access once it's on your phone. I know that was a concern that some folks have raised. Again, I want to talk to you, 240-363-7190, 240-363-7190. And by the way, please click please subscribe if you haven't already. Okay. As I said, winning is contagious. Winners are popular, and we have a real opportunity in Oregon. I was going to try to give it. Is it the Beaver State? I know it's the Oregon Beavers. I don't think they call it that. Washington may be the Pine Tree State. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But in Oregon, they passed a law which is kind of similar to a law that a legislator who's a friend of mine has been pushing in Maryland. Her name is Sheila Ruth, and she's really pushed it, and it hasn't passed yet, but Maryland has more structural obstacles to getting universal single-payer health coverage than Oregon. Oregon doesn't have it. They're not definitely going to get it, but they took a big step in the direction of universal single-payer just a week or so ago. I think it was in August 2nd, when SB 1089 passed in the Oregon House and Senate and was signed by the governor there. And this is a big step after they already took a big step, which we'll get to in a moment what that other big step was. So what does SB 1089 do? It creates this Universal Health Plan Governance Board to design a detailed, publicly funded, single-payer, universal healthcare system to begin as soon as 2027. So that's a remarkable achievement by the progressives in Oregon, and I am so happy to hear that. And I will tell you this, if this thing becomes law, and there are still a few steps that have to happen before it does, but if this becomes law, I'm very seriously considering moving to Oregon. Okay, we just got a call, and of course I didn't have my dial pad muted, which I apologize for. I should have it muted. But let's go to our caller. Who do we have on the line? Good morning. Or good afternoon.
Hey, good morning. How's Tim?
Oh, hey, Tim. How you doing? Hey,
Pretty good.
Tell us your little technique. You're not using the clip grab or clip grab. You're using some other technique to listen rather than watch?
That's exactly why I was calling in. So I went ahead and I opened up YouTube on my iPhone. And what I do is when you close YouTube, the new app, or one of the more recent versions of the YouTube app, will keep the stream going, but it shrinks it to like a window in a window. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think Android does that.
Okay.
My Android now didn't used to do that. Does that now? Same thing.
Right. So you close the app, but the stream will keep playing, or the video will keep playing. It shrinks to a window in a window. Then you take that little window, you slide it off the screen, and you'll see it. It'll go off the screen, but it'll leave a little tab for you to pull it back.
Got it.
At which point you can power down the screen. That will literally stop the audio. But if you're wearing Apple AirPods, with the click of the AirPod to start and stop the audio will start without turning the phone back on.
All right, so you're saying that those AirPods will allow you, even with the audio coming out of the phone off, because you've minimized the video,
yes,
taken off the screen completely, not shrunk it, but minimize it. But the pods will continue to generate the audio. I don't think you can do that with a Droid. So the benefit there is that you save your battery. Is that right?
Yes. And from what I've noticed, the video data is not streaming either. So.
Okay, I got it. That to me sounds pretty like the advantage. What I've recommended, the clip grab, is that you just download it, but you can only do that after the video's been up for about a day and they actually have it completely
right. So this enables me to listen live, and like I said, it sounds complicated, but once you do it, it's not that bad. So basically, minimize the app, leaving the video in the screen. Then you slide the video off the screen. The audio still keeps playing at that point so long as your phone is on. But then when you put your screen to sleep, it automatically stops the audio, but you can restart the audio using your headphones. And I presume other headphones have a start and stop feature on the headphones themselves too. It's not like the old headphones. Most of them are getting pretty fancy these days.
So when you start the audio, this was something that occurred to me. When you start that audio, are you sure it doesn't restart the screen as well? Like the screen stays dark?
It does not.
Because I would have thought that would
dark.
activate the screen. That's interesting. That doesn't.
Nope. I double checked. So it enables you to continue the audio from the YouTube video with the phone still essentially asleep. The screen's still asleep.
Very cool, Tim. Well, that's a really neat solution. I will say, I don't use pods, or I don't use the Bluetooth. I've never liked those. I still have, I'm like the last person who insists on getting an actual phone jack in my phone, and I plug mine in. For my wife, I got her the Apple adapter because she has an iPhone without a jack, but I got her a little adapter.
I think a lot of those headphones still have controls on the cable though, don't they?
Mine does not have a control on the cable. I think you can get some controls.
Okay.
I think.
Anyways, one other thing before I go, Hal, have you looked at anything like does Restream? I know there's Restream.io, which allows you to stream to multiple platforms at the same time. Does that allow like an audio only streaming?
So I have used Restream. I'm not using Restream now for two reasons, but you're absolutely right. Restream absolutely allows you to stream to multiple platforms. So I could do Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm going to just mute you because I'm hearing some noise in the background there. Instagram, the whole 9 yards. The reason I don't do that is the expense, A, and B. That Restream account would cost me probably another $20-$30 a month. I'm trying to keep my expenses down as much as possible. And because I want to have all my viewers on one platform, because there's so few of you guys that I want to have you all in one place. So when they aggregate most effectively, but I don't think if you find, Tim, that there is a audio only distribution through Restream, let me know and I'll look into that for sure.
All right, Hal. Well, hey, I got to go. It's great talking to you.
Great chatting. Thanks so much for listening. Really appreciate it. So there goes Tim, and I guess he's is it Seaside, I think, or Marina, I guess. Great to hear from him. 240-363-7190, but he wanted to talk about tech, which I always enjoyed discussing, not politics. If Oregon gets universal single payer coverage, I will pitch aggressively to move there from retirement. Maybe aggressively is the wrong term. I will certainly discuss with my wife the advantages of moving to a state where they have universal single payer health coverage, especially if you're a senior. We won't have to worry about Medicare coverage. We won't have to worry about co-pays and the Medicare disadvantage and all that nonsense. So this would be a much better solution for us. Also, Oregon is a beautiful state. It's just really, really nice. Not sure Portland would be my choice, but it's really nice. So yeah, this is what the Democrats need to do. They need to support universal single payer coverage. They will get, and they don't. And when people say, well, we need to elect more progressives, I don't get that. I just don't. We already have seen the progressives fail us repeatedly. So what's your evidence that more progressives in Congress will mean more self-described progressives? Now, why did they get this in Oregon? Why did this SB 1089, which just was signed into law by the governor, creates an actual path towards single payer? Why did that happen? As soon as 2027, by the way, because of a voter referendum. Last year, less than a year ago, you can see on the screen, Measure 111 passed by voters. It was very close, 50-50, really 50.5, 49.5. Constitutional guaranteed access to care. When voters have a choice, and when we can get on ballots truly progressive bills like this, like Measure 111, or like the Ohio bill, or like in Florida, the $15 minimum wage passed. These are, well, Oregon's a progressive, relatively Democratic state, but the other two states have gone for Republicans in recent elections. And yet when a populist economic in Florida, populist $15 minimum wage, and when a right that would protect well over, because they're well over 50% of the population in any state is women, except maybe Alaska. That's not. I'm not sure. Alaska has always had a relatively high percentage of male residents. But putting aside Alaska, in a state like Ohio, where there are more women than men, where a majority of the population is impacted, either when they were younger, if they're in menopause or postmenopause, or they will be if they're girls. Of course, they're not voting. They choose the right to choose. Democrats can win if they focus on progressive populist issues. Even the right to choose is a populist issue because, so many working class, lower middle class, struggling girls and women have no choice. They can't, even if they could somehow find a doctor, many policies don't cover abortions now. They can't afford it. They can't they can't get to a blue state. The billionaire class, they have no trouble. They fly to LA, fly to New York, fly to London, whatever, wherever. Big holiday, get an abortion. It's easy. So again, a populist progressive issue, choice, the right to choose, the right to have it part of your health care, which is guaranteed. Progressive populist issue, Democrats refuse to champion. Just that simple. So what's our solution? There is a solution. The solution is we vote for Dr. Cornel West. We tell everyone to vote for Dr. Cornel West. We are not anymore at the mercy of corporate media. We create our own media. That's what this is all about. Now, just to be completely, transparent about Oregon, I love what Oregon is doing, but they don't have it guaranteed yet. There still are several steps. First of all, that Oregon board has to come up with, the healthcare board there has to come up with a plan, and they have to propose it. Now, they're obligated by law to do it, so they will. But the law still needs to be approved. The plan, before it becomes law, before Oregonians get guaranteed single-payer coverage, the legislature will have to approve the proposal. And that would be as early as 2027. But it only establishes a governance board and does not implement yet universal health care. The legislature would still need to approve the board's proposal later date. And I can guarantee you that Republicans and many Democrats are going to do everything possible to elect state representatives who are opposed to this bill. They do not want this in place. They don't want citizens getting universal single-payer health coverage. They don't want everyone to see how well it works, how much money it saves, how the benefits that will accrue to the economy. They don't want that because it would take profits away from for-profit healthcare, from big pharma, and also it would take some power away from bosses. Bosses would not be able to threaten workers with the loss of health care if they fail to do their job to the boss's satisfaction. Right now, people are terrified to lose jobs, not just because of the loss of income, but because of the loss of health care. I know people with cancer who are getting very expensive medication. They can't leave a job. Can't leave their job. They don't know if they'll get another job. It'll be harder. And if the person that hires them or that they want to go to learns that they have cancer, then they may recoil. They may say, "Oh my God, our health insurance is going to go way up if we hire this person, if it's a small business." So the advantages are tremendous to poor, struggling, working Americans, to the whole economy, to even wealthy people who are often find that they're a significant, or at least comfortable, middle class, upper middle class people who have to pay until it hurts for health care. all of that. I'm a privileged individual. I would love to live in a state that had universal single-payer health coverage. That'd be a great benefit for me, for my family. The last thing the corporatists in both parties, the duopoly, wants is for this to happen. They're going to do everything they can to stop it. Let's hope they lose. Let's hope they fail. All right. I'm going to end this. I've been doing this for a while now. I'm often despondent. I'm often downcast. I'm often wondering if we can if things can work in our society. I think they can work. I think things can become much, much better. But we've got to be willing to stop doing the things that haven't worked. We have to be willing to put aside what has failed and to embrace what can work. I don't think there's any question at this point that the one candidate who really has our best interest, who has the best interest of the American people, of the whole planet at heart, is Dr. Cornel West. And I implore you to embrace his candidacy.
Class struggle is inescapable in the capitalist society. You have to be very honest about that. And the end and aim is always to squeeze from the worker what you can to make the profits as high as you can. You got banks right here in New York that are generating billions and billions and billions of dollars and staying in the pockets of the well-to-do. Well, we got 3 individuals in the country that has wealth equivalent to 160 million citizens. 3 people. 3 people. That's a Keith Sweat moment. Something just ain't right.
All right, so yeah, I mean, I don't see how we don't support that candidate who talks truly about economic warfare, class struggle, whatever term you want to use. And I think it's really important to note what West said there very clearly. He said that a class struggle is inevitable in a capitalist society. The interests of the employers are necessarily counter to those of the workers. That the employer's goal is to reduce expenses of labor. Obviously, workers have a very different goal. Now, this doesn't mean we completely reject, and he's not saying it. He is certainly going to call himself a democratic socialist, but that's kind of a slippery term. He's not saying we get rid of all the profit motive, we get rid of all for-profit companies. He's not saying that. He's saying we have to understand that there's going to be tension, conflict between workers and capital. And we need a government that's going to side with the workers, that's going to provide them with the kinds of regulations on corporations, the kind of guarantees that will protect everyone, while we still get the benefits that we have seen from capitalism. I'm not sure, maybe those benefits are pretty ephemeral at this point because we're burning our planet up. But regulations, taxes, taxing the bads, not the goods, that can stop. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week. But while there's still some beauty, some wild things left, we can still do that. And we can guarantee everyone a decent quality of life. But only if we accept that we can't continue to support either party, members of either party, that this man is our right. And I've said it about Bernie in 2016. I don't think I was wrong. He was our last best hope then. We've lost a lot since 2016. We've lost a lot of species. We've seen a lot of our land underwater. We've lost a lot of fresh water. The climate has gotten much hotter. But our last best chance now to conserve what we can conserve is this man.
Class struggle is inescapable in the capitalist society. You have to be very honest about that. And the end and aim is always to squeeze from the worker what you can to make the profits as high as you can. You got banks right here in New York that are generating billions and billions and billions of dollars and stand in the pockets of the well-to-do. Well, we got 3 individuals in the country that has wealth equivalent to 160 million citizens. 3 people. 3 people. That's a Keith Sweat moment. Something just ain't right.
Thank you so much, Dr. West, and I'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, click subscribe and click like.